Hi, it's me, Sir Henrik, from Henrik Academy. In this video, I will explain regarding discrete variables and continuous variables. Why I upload this video? Because usually my students confuse the difference between discrete variables and continuous variables. So before I begin this lesson, as usual, please click like and subscribe. And afterwards, take your pen and your notebook and study with me. I will begin uh, with this diagram, variable diagram. Variable comprised of two types variable. There are qualitative variable and quantitative variable. And look that quantitative variable comprised of discrete variables and continuous variables. Yeah. But right now we are going to learn. I'm gonna explain regarding discrete and continuous variables. Variable and random variable. Variable is a quantity whose value changes. For example, if expressions or equations consist of variables, for example, 2x plus 3, the variable is x. But in a statistic, the variables usually written as x, yeah, especially for random variable. And it's a variable whose values are numerical outcomes of random phenomena. Yeah, that's a random variable. So different, a variable and a random variable. Yeah. So random variable you got from the variables from some variables. So there are two types of random variables: discrete variables and continuous variables. If you look at this diagram, that actually sample space, from sample space, we're gonna get random variables of random variable x. In this case, that is a sample space of when you toss a coin. When you toss a coin, and the sample space is head or tails, and the random variables in the take when you toss the coin, the outcomes between head or tail. Okay, and it means the random variables 1 or 0, 1 or not 1, not 1 is 0, and the probability when you toss a coin and the outcome is tail, for example, the probability is a half. One side of two sides of coin. All right, so that's the understanding regarding variables and random variables. Now we are going to discrete variables and continuous variables. A discrete variable is a variable whose value is obtained by counting. Yeah, that's discrete variables. And discrete variables can take only integer values, never includes fractions or decimals. And so discrete variables not include fraction numbers or decimal numbers. For example, number of students present in a day in a classroom, number of red marbles in a box, number of goals scored in a football match. Now that is the example of discrete variables. And next, a continuous variable. A A continuous variable is a variable value is obtained by measuring. So different with discrete variables. If discrete variables, we could obtain the data or the variable through counting, but continuous variable, we got the data or variable through measuring. And continuous variable can take values including fractions or decimal number. So difference with discrete variables. If discrete variables not include fractions or decimal numbers, but continuous variables including fractions or decimal numbers. For example, a continuous variables, height of students in a classroom, weight of students in a class, time it takes a student to get to school, or the distance travel between a classroom and another classroom. Yeah, that's the example of continuous variables. Okay, next. Now we are going to discrete random variables and continuous random variables. Yeah. A discrete random variable X is a countable number of possible values. For example, number of students come to school in a day, or number of breaking down product in a month. Yeah. And how about the sample space? Sample space of discrete random variables has definite elements. For example, when we toss a dice, or when we flipping a coin and the outcomes, that's the examples of sample space of discrete random variables. And how about a continuous random variables? A continuous random variable X takes all values in a given interval of numbers. So different with discrete random variables. If discrete random variables has a countable number of possible values, but continuous random variable takes all values in a given interval of numbers, right? For example, the distance of school and our house, the student's house, or time to go to school every day. And how about the sample space? Sample space of continuous random variables has numbers in an interval, right? So if sample space of discrete has definite elements, but sample space of continuous has numbers in interval and interval. For example, real numbers between 0 and 6. Okay. So the interval is 0 and 6. Vote for a class leader. Okay. Yeah, that's the examples of continuous random variables. Next, we are going to look this diagram, this graph of discrete random variables and continuous random variables data. Look at discrete random variables such as this graph, and similarly actually with continuous, but continuous random variable could become a straight line, but discrete random variables it just spread like this this graph. Yeah. Okay, so very different between discrete random variables and continuous random variables. Now we're going to question and answer. Determine if the following set data include of discrete or continuous discrete random variables or continuous random variables. A, the speed of a bicycle. I think this is include of continuous random variables. Yeah, because we got the data through measurements, right? B, the number of ants at ant colonies. Yeah, this data include this data include of discrete random variables because we got the data, yeah, through counting, not through measurements. See the volume of water in a swimming pool. Yeah, I think also this one includes of discrete random variables because we got the data through counting, yeah, the number of heads when flipping a coin. Yeah, I think this includes of discrete random variables as well. The weight of bananas include of continuous, yeah, continuous or random variables. And the age of person, I think this include of continuous random variables as well. The height of your classmates include of continuous random variables as well. And the number of books in the library, this include of discrete random variables. So A, yeah, A, C, E, F, and G include of continuous random variables. And the remainder is include of the remainder are include of discrete random variables B, D, and H. Okay, so that's, I think this clear regarding the understanding or the difference between discrete random variables and continuous random variables, between discrete variables and continuous variables. Discrete variables we got through counting, but continuous variables we got through measurements. Okay, discrete random variables we got as the integer numbers, never include decimals and fractions, but continuous random variables include of decimals and fractions numbers. All right, if you have any questions, you could send me a message through this email. My email, hendrikacademy21@gmail.com. Thank you for your watching. See you